Welcome everyone to another edition of Play It Through, and on this edition it's Yo Noid, brought to us by Capcom. Known in Japan as Kamen no Ninja Hanamaru, the game was changed up for the North American release to Yo Noid, featuring the Noid, the Domino's Pizza mascot. The game is mostly a classic platformer, with you playing as the Noid battling through several themed levels, using a yo-yo as your weapon. However, it's the boss battles that end up being the real interesting aspect of the game, as they are a pizza eating contest, where you have to eat more pizza than your opponent, using a card-based system. It takes a little bit of getting used to, and I'm not very good at it. I just like to try to rush through it a lot of times, but there are a few strategies you can use in order to help you throughout the course of it. Now, unfortunately, in this run of the game, I won't be completing There Is a Secret level, so I won't have that one in this run, but I will be completing the rest of the stages, not using any warps, and making my way to the end of the game. This game, in general, is one that I've been working on for many years. I've just never been able to get through it very well. It's very hard because it's one-hit death, so even the platforming segments can be an absolute chore. When it comes to the pizza eating contest, basically you have your cards, they have theirs, they pick theirs at random, and then you get to pick your card. You can decide how you want to play it, whether you want to go defensively, whether you want to go low and just let them have it, or whether you want to try to beat their card, in which case you'll then earn pizzas. The more that you beat them, so if you have a 4 and they have a 3, you'll get 1 pizza. But if you have a 4 and they have a 1, you'll get 3 pizzas in your meter. Whoever fills up the meters at the bottom first is the winner, or if you can get your opponent to run out of cards first, then you're automatically declared the winner, which is something I'll do several times throughout the game. The worst thing about this whole pizza eating contest is it does take up a lot of time throughout the game. The game comes to a complete crawl at the end of each one of the levels because of this. Thankfully, we're almost done here. Just a few more pizza things left to go, and go ahead and play. A lot of times when they use their things, I'll use a lower card or a slightly lower card just to let them win, because I don't have something that can straight up beat them, and I'd rather save my cards that can beat them or tie them for later matchups. It'll take a while sometimes, but eventually you can beat the rival Noid here, and we're moving on to the next level. Thankfully, the next stage actually doesn't have a boss to deal with. We just have to run our way through. All throughout the stages, you'll see these scrolls that are scattered all around, which you're supposed to hit first and then open them up in order to actually get the item. Early on in the games, a lot of times in the runs, I've just been running through the first few levels because I just got so tired of playing the first few stages over and over again. So it's not until a little bit later on in the game do I actually start trying to get the good items and such because I've actually made it that far. Initially, this run wasn't going to be something I turned into a video, but I've never been able to get a better run of Yo Noid over the years, so I figured I'd finally go ahead and add commentary to it. Watch out for the curling enemy, one of my favorites though in the game for sure. I'm going to jump over the polar bear hockey player to get up to the top platforms and then wait our way on this one for just a little bit in order to jump to the next two icy platforms. The extra cards that you can pick up, some of which are hidden and you can hit like just invisible spots in the air in order to make them appear, are the key to beating the pizza eating contest a lot of times. Next up is a skateboard themed stage. You can use it to ride the ramps and thusly get a little bit of extra speed. You can also jump attack the enemies. You gotta be careful though by doing this because you could potentially end up getting hit yourself. If you have enough momentum, you can just roll through them, but you gotta make sure that you have enough momentum as you come down the various ramps. Jump up here to make sure that you're able to get across the gap. Just trying to make that jump is hard. Be careful of this enemy above before heading up the hill and continue over to the right. Use the ramp a little bit to get enough momentum to get over the next jump. And into the next pizza eating contest. By doing a ×2 with the 3, I'm able to get a 6 over the 4, so at least I get 2 of my pizzas that way. A lot of times though with the multipliers, you may want to wait for a low number like a 1, and then do the times multiplier with one of your higher cards just to get a big amount of pizzas. But then you run the risk, of course, of using your multiplier early on or too late, and then you end up not being able to catch up. I really wish there was a way to speed through these a little bit quicker, but unfortunately, there isn't. Just gotta take our time and slowly work our way through this pizza eating contest and hopefully be able to be the winner. A lot of times it's just waiting for certain cards from the AI to actually show up so that you can actually beat them enough and take the wins. The next level is another one of the ones that doesn't have a pizza eating contest, so we can at least enjoy running through this stage without a annoying contest at the end. If you end up losing the contest, you have to do the level again, which is no fun. Be very careful moving these rotating platforms as you're making your way over the city. Kind of cool level overall. While they changed the whole graphics and such, at least some of the graphics and all, they didn't completely overhaul everything. Like, they didn't make a completely new game. It's just a simple card game that is used in the Japanese version, where we have the pizza eating contest here for the North American version. Surprisingly though, this wasn't the only Noid game. There's actually another Noid game, Avoid the Noid, that came out before that was on Commodore 64 and MS-DOS, but I've actually never gotten the chance to play that before. On to the next level is a sewer theme stage. Watch out for the dropping water as well as fire that's shooting out from the background. Here you'll jump on this box, it'll start to move. You gotta be careful, of course, while on it. It moves pretty fast. There's some enemies you'll have to deal with. Attack this enemy for the bucket from afar, deal with it, and then continue on. If you try to jump over it, a lot of times you'll just end up getting hit by what it throws out. As we reach the end, it's time for another pizza eating contest. Each one of these ends up getting harder and harder. The opponents end up having more and more 4 and above cards. That makes it just a lot tougher to actually make any kind of headway, which is why there's extra cards like the multipliers, pepper, hot sauce are very important to pick up during the course of the levels, or else you just may be at too much of a disadvantage to be able to best your opponent. A lot of times, like I said, I will play more defensive strategies than offensive strategies and just kind of waste out their cards as much as I possibly can. I'm going to use the hot pepper on the 5 right here, or the red pepper on the 5. For this one, we're pretty much just using the defensive strategy, slowly draining down his sets of cards until he ends up having none left. It can only be done if you have more cards than them, so that's why you need stuff like the pepper and such. But if he's not able to get all of the pizzas filled up and he runs out of cards, he instantly ends up losing, even if you haven't gotten a single pizza, which wouldn't be possible, I don't think, but still. He finally ends up picking his last card, and we can just end up negating it with our 1. We have 2 cards left. Now the thing is, if you tie, if you both use your last card at the same time, whoever has more pizzas is the winner. So I would lose if I had used that as my last card, if that was my last one. But since it wasn't, and I have 1 more left, I'm the winner, and we're moving on to the next level. The next stage is a very difficult one with this water, and you have to use these boats to get across. I always have problems when I made it to this stage, making a little bit of a mistake here and there. Watch out for the flying, annoying hornet-like enemies, as well as jumping fish that are going to try to get a hold of you. You have to hit these switches, and you'll get these platforms to rise from the ground. You have to work your way across. Just keep moving your way through, watching out. There's lots of projectiles and other enemies that are come at your way during this. I love the boat in the background with Noid on it, as if it was the Noid's boat. Wait for the cannons to fire, and then of course attempt to jump over them. When we reach the end, though, that's thankfully the end of the stage. We don't have a pizza eating contest, and we're moving on to the next level. Next up is a Carnival themed stage, and one of my favorites in the game. It does auto-scroll, so you have to be careful during the course of it, and usually I'm not a big fan of auto-scroll, but for whatever reason I do like this stage. Be careful and use the springs in order to get across. You have to then immediately jump off of the carousel horses onto the next spring and keep doing that over the gap. Quickly move your way across the horses to get across this gap, and then do the same right here with a smaller one. As long as you're quick off of the carousel horses, you shouldn't have too much problems as far as being able to get across them. And then we're at the next boss encounter. Another one that I'm going to be playing some defense against. Slowly work on draining the cards and end up winning by kind of default, I guess. My favorite thing is the Noid was something that you wanted to avoid and was bad technically in a lot of the commercials, but they made him the good guy here to stop other Noids from causing destruction, basically. And the New York City mayor is going to reward the Noid with a bunch of pizza. That's the storyline of the game. It is a storyline that's told at the beginning of the title. There's a little bit of a cutscene that takes place if you stay at the title screen for a little bit of time. But I was just trying to get through this as practice, and I ended up having a really good run, so that's why I ended up skipping the intro. It wasn't meant to be the run you see here. It'll take several minutes, but eventually we get him down to that final card and able to just barely best him and move on to the next stage. Next up is the first of the 2 helicopter-themed levels in the game. Here you have to control the Noid on a helicopter. There's no weapon that you have, you just gotta kind of move and float your way through. It's a pretty tricky area for sure as you're trying to just make your way through all these spikes. It takes a bit of practice. There's a lot of similar games out there, or similar mechanics in games that I've used over the years, so you kind of get used to this style of helicopter hitting the button every few seconds in order to kind of keep afloat. Just keep being very careful, moving your way between the spikes, and we come to the end and complete the level, and we're moving on to the next stage. Next up, we're in like an abandoned house. We're going to work our way over to the right side here. Deal with some bats and such that are going to be in the air and have to bounce a little bit on some springs. Be careful of these things falling from the ceiling as you walk underneath of them. Just very simple. They'll fall and then go right back up. One of my favorite enemies in the game is the one I just dealt with a second ago, that fat rat with a balloon. Just a funny enemy overall. I'm going to take out this enemy from a distance and then go onto the platform where they are. If you hold down and B, you can do your special move when you have enough of your meter and such, but it's something usually I don't end up doing too much. The yo-yo is perfectly fine, and a lot of times I'm just kind of running through the areas. Up next is another one of the pizza eating contests, no surprise here. For this one we have a decent amount of supplies going in as far as multipliers and the extra items. He does have plenty of high cards though, so when they get a low card, at least we'll use one of our ones to get at least a point or two. Now we're going to play defensive still like before. We're going to make sure that he ends up running out of cards before we end up getting the win. But that will change up as we go a little bit farther into the game. We'll start being a little bit more aggressive as the matchups get harder. Unfortunately, the amount of high cards he still has left, I don't have really enough to win, but plenty to still just slowly beat him and just wear out his cards until he has none left. Finally, he gets to that last card, and we're able to just put down our 2 here just to take only 1 more damage, but it doesn't matter. The battle is done, and we are declared the winner. Next up, work your way over to the right side. There's going to be some flying trash cans coming your way. Be careful of that. Pretty simple level overall compared to some of the other ones we've dealt with, mostly just running forward, having to jump over some trash cans every time we end up having them thrown at us, but other than that, it's not too bad. Here I'm able to get an invincibility item and can run through a decent amount of enemies for a time. Anytime you're able to get this, of course, use it. Onwards to the next level, a construction site. Watch out for the falling boxes as you make your way through. A little bit into the level, we can get another one of those scrolls that gives us a invincibility item for a period of time. It's a good level to use it in for sure. Here, I'm going to try to find a couple of hidden items in the background just to help me with the card battle at the end. There's a few hidden multipliers and other items that are scattered around the level. Always a good idea to keep an eye out for them, especially in these harder matchups that we're going to be doing. Careful of the snail, it actually does take multiple hits to deal with as we reach the end and get to the next pizza eating contest. With a decent amount of multipliers and such, I should be able to take him down. If I see that 5, go ahead and use the red pepper to make sure that he loses that one. I wish I had a bit more strategy in order to throw out there, but unfortunately there just isn't a whole lot. What card he picks each time is random, as well as what cards he actually has is a bit random as well. They're mostly the same, but there may be 2 1s instead of 1 1, or there may be an extra 5 or something like that changes up each time you end up playing. Thankfully, I'm able to hit a big one right there, and I now need only 3 more pizzas left in order to defeat the Noid. I'm facing off with the Gray Noid. Mr. Gray, I guess? I don't know. And do this 3 times 3 against a 3, and that's enough to beat him, and we're moving on to the next level. Next up is the final stage that doesn't have a pizza eating contest. The last 2 levels of the game that we'll be doing both have pizza eating contests at the end of them. Move your way around the conveyor belts. Of course, they're going to push and pull you depending upon what directions they're going, so you got to be very careful. You can jump over the electricity here if need be, and grab an invincibility item right here. This allows us to get through a little bit of the level for sure without having to worry too much. A couple more jumps on the conveyor belts and we reach the end of the level, and we're moving on to the next stage. For the next level, we're working our way up this large building. Make sure that you grab any bonus items for the cards that you end up seeing along the way, so that the pizza eating contest will be a little bit more manageable. Watch out for the barrel as he rolls it down. Just kind of jump over it and avoid it and take out the enemy, and then if you need to jump over a second barrel, do so before continuing on. When we make it here, the screen will start to auto-scroll a bit, so you have to be very careful as we're jumping between the various platforms. Just keep moving up, jumping back and forth between these platforms. Just a little bit farther and we reach the top of the building, and it's time for the next pizza eating contest, the second to last pizza eating contest, thankfully. Introduced here though are number 6 cards, the highest cards that the opponent can get. Thankfully, we have a decent arsenal in order to work on him and be able to best him. Anytime one of the 6s come up, we're going to go ahead and use one of our special moves or a times multiplier in order to negate it. I'm able to get a couple of good high multipliers early to fill up most of my pizza meter. Next, he ends up getting a 6, so we're going to go ahead and use our pepper on him in order to stop that. We're saving the ×3 multiplier until we can get something really low, and that way we can really end up doing some damage. Take the hit on the 5 using the 2 just because. Don't want to use my multiplier yet. And there's still that 6 on the board for him. I was able to get a big lead early, but a lot of times it's the waiting game, just waiting for him to finally pick the right cards so that I can end up making my next move. For here, we get a ×3 with a 4 here against a 2, and that's more than enough. There we go. We're able to beat him and move on to the final level of the game. The final level is another one of the flying levels. Make sure that you grab the multipliers as you make your way through so you have plenty of stuff to use against the final pizza contest. Carefully dodging out of the way as much as possible of these enemies can be a bit annoying. Watch out for this flying enemy overhead, shooting down some projectiles on you. Just stay relatively low and you should be able to float over any of the spikes coming your way and avoid the projectiles as we reach the end. And it's time for the next and final pizza eating contest. Here we face off against the champion, Mr. Green. Right away, we're going to do the ×3 on a 4 and get a lot of pizzas eaten really quickly. Thankfully, I had multiple ×3, so it was worth doing early on. Now comes the waiting game of just waiting for that right card to be picked so that I can end up capitalizing on it. He ends up getting a couple of 5s pretty quickly. Here he gets a number 6, so we're going to go ahead and use the red pepper. Go ahead and take the loss on this one. Here I'm going to use a ×3 on a 3 to get a 9 against the 4 here and fill up a lot more of my thing. I'm only missing 2 spots now. Thankfully, I still have the other pepper I can use to negate the other 6. He has 2 more 6s on the board that can be very dangerous, but thankfully he ends up picking the 2, so I can end up picking a ×2 on a 3, finish him off, and we can enjoy the ending, the Yo Noid on the NES. So there you have it, Yo Noid for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Not a great platformer, one that's annoyed me a lot over the years, but I'm glad to have finally done a video for it. I know it wasn't the greatest run, so I apologize for that. But with that, we'll wrap up this episode of Play It Through. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.